Hi, welcome back to another collection overview video. Today I'm going to talk to you about vintage Parker Duofold pens. And this video will be maybe a little bit long and it will not have writing samples. It's just showing you the pens. So, let's start this video. Today I'm going to talk to you about the vintage Parker Duofold. And when I'm talking about vintage Parker Duofold, I'm talking about the Parker Duofold that were made in the United States between 1921 and 1942. The biggest amount of pens that I'm going to show you is between 1921 to 1935, but there are two of the period that goes until 1942. So, for this video, most information I got was from that very nice website, which is called parkerpens.net, and also from this nice book, the Parker Duofold book, which is now sold out and quite hard to find. So, I'm not a specialist on Parker history. I love Parker pens, I have some, so I will give you some historical dates, but I'm not an expert, I'm just giving you an overall reference, so if you need something else, maybe it's better to check more reliable information. But I try to do my best while researching. So I start by showing you this pen box. It's like this, made of wood. It's not an original Parker Duofold box. It is made more recently. I don't know when. I don't have many information about this. I only know this may have been made in Brazil. And the store where I bought it in Lisbon, the store doesn't exist anymore, so there's no way to go there. They had three models of these boxes. They had for the Parker Duofold, for the Parker 51, and for the Parker Vacuumatic. But the store is no longer. I bought for the Parker Duofold and the 51. So we have here the 25-year pen because it was released as a pen with 25 years of warranty. It has this bird, which was the bird that was shown on the advertisement of the Parker Duofold, and inside, let me put it like this so you can see it all. It has some elastic bands to put the pens in. It says Duofold there, and when you put this in this side, you have a Parker Duofold nib. So it is a fun little box, very beautiful, but not really an original, and as far as I know, it was not released by Parker. So let me go to the Parker history. So Parker Duofold history. Parker Duofold was released in 1921, so it made 100 years last year. And this pen was released in a time when Parker in the United States was the fourth pen brand. First it was Waterman, then Wall, and then Schiffer. Parker was the fourth brand. At the end of the Duofold, after the release of the Duofold, in several years, Parker became the major brand in the United States because this pen was really a success. So the pen was released in 1921 and it was released in red hard rubber. It was the big red. It was a pen that was really successful, mostly because most pens at the time were just black. Parker already made red giant, like they had the black giant before and they made the red giant, but it was an eyedropper pen and there were several problems with the red ebonite because it cracked. But they risked and they created this pen in red, and the design was created like this. It was a pen that had the filling system by a button filler, so you push the button and there is a lever inside that a bar that presses the ink sac and makes a vacuum to draw ink inside. And this button was covered by a blind cap, which was black. The top of the pen was black, and the section was black. This was the overall design of the pen. It should have a big nib like this one, and it is quite a large nib. And the pen was made to these specifications with a clip and black ends. So this was how it was designed. They wanted to shift from the simple black pens and create this very interesting pen. They had a similar pen already, but in black, but it was not called Duofold. The Duofold was this scheme. They also decided to create a very stiff nib for it, so it could write in carbon copy paper. So they created this pen. This pen, when it was created, it had only, it was with no cap bands, then there were several cap bands, so there is lots of variations. It's very hard to keep on with that. I have two of these large Parker Duofold pens. One is this one with one single band, the other one has two bands. When you unscrew the pens, I'm not sure if the barrels are correct. I'm not sure about engravings. I'm not sure about many things. You have different nibs. So the nib on the Duofold was like that says Parker Duofold. But this one is the nib with an arrow, which is the kind of nib of a Parker Vacuumatic. So, I'm not sure about the time dates about these pens. They are very confusing. Also, the design of the section is a little different. This one is shorter, that one is a little longer. But it's a very comfortable pen to hold. I really like this kind of design. It's very simple. And I think of a fountain pen, I think about Parker Duofold. So there were lots of variations. I don't know much about them. I'm not sure these pens are correct with their caps. And the nib on this one is like the nib of a Parker Vacuumatic, but it may not be the wrong nib. Because the Parker Duofold was discontinued. This kind of model, it was already discontinued when the Parker Vacuumatic with the arrow nib was introduced on Parker range. But because they still had lots of stock of parts, they still created pens and started putting the big Vacuumatic nibs. Or I think this one is really a Parker Duofold nib with the arrow style that was created when they still had barrels and caps, but they didn't have the nib, so they put this kind of nib. Or this could be a replacement. Maybe this pen was sent for repair at Parker and they replaced the nib for a new nib, and that new nib was that. So this was in 1921, not this with the bands, but without bands. And it was released in this senior size, or as it was called by then, oversize. Then, in 1922, the following year, they decided to release the Junior Duofold and the Lady Duofold. So, the Junior and Lady Duofold, they have overall the same kind of design, but the Junior is shorter, as you may see, and it is less thick, and the Lady is the same size as the Junior, but even slimmer. This one has a very broad cap band because it was called the Deluxe version. These pens have engravings on the barrel. I'm not sure if I can show you. I think this is more visible in this one, but let me try to show. It has this kind of engraving, and there were lots of different engravings. This one also has the engraving. That doesn't say oversized or senior, but this one says, I'm not sure if you can read it, Duofold Junior. And then it has the Lucky Curve and so on. Lucky Curve was the kind of feed they had. So this is the same kind of nib, but smaller, some kind of feed, but smaller. These lady versions could have the ring top, or they could be fitted without any ring on top, or they may be fitted with a clip. And they even had smaller nibs. As far as I know, this section is not correct. The section should be the same kind of design as that one. But when I bought these pens, I didn't know that much about them. Let me just show you the difference between the nibs on the Senior, the Junior, and the Lady. So it's really easy to see the Senior is very big. Let me just cap them. The red rubber or red ebonite was more brittle than black ebonite, so sometimes there were some problems. This one, as you may see, has a cracked lip of the cap. I bought it like this. I have the remaining piece of these because when I bought it many years ago, the seller sent me. I'm not sure how to repair it, but I have the missing part to that. So the part is not really missing. In 1923, so 2 years after this pen was released, because it was a big hit, because it was a red pen, they decided to go back one step and to widen their range of pens by introducing a black pen. And the black pen was the same pen but in black, also with some engraving. There are lots of different engravings, and it was released in black or in Senior or Junior or Lady size. I don't have the Lady, but I have the Senior and the Junior, and you can see the differences. Again, this one doesn't have the most correct nib, or maybe it is a legitimate replacement. I'm not so sure of that. Someday I'll need to try to find much more information about these pens to really know what I really have, but in this video I just wanted to show my overall collection. It's not a kind of a reference video for the future, it's just to show up a collection overview. So this was 1923. In 1924, because Parker still had lots of different models around, they decided to take out of the market all the older models they had prior from 1921, and they decided to create a new pen that would go into the students' range, kind of to replace that pen, because it was the overall same model as the Duofold, but it could replace all the multitude of different pens that were older, and sometimes they came back to the factory for replacements or repairs, and it was a huge effort to keep those going. So they released this pen. This pen is very similar, but it has an engraving there with the size of the pen. I think this means the size 20 and a half. And this pen was called the Parker DQ, which means Duofold quality. They didn't want to mark it. It is hard rubber, again, with this chased pattern. It's beautiful. You can see the engraving, which is quite good. lucky curve there, but you can see there Parker DQ. So it was a student's pen. It was smaller. This one has a small nib, but I think this is a very beautiful nib. I really like it. It really has that vintage appeal. I like to write with this pen. Some years ago I wrote a lot with this, but now I found that recently found that the sack inside is broken, so I need to replace it. Maybe I will do a video on that. So I'll have to remove this button, then remove the bar inside and to put this going again. So maybe I'll make a video showing how to do it if you're interested. And if you're asking, this is the comparison between the senior size and the DQ. The DQ is just a little bit shorter, not much, just a little bit, and it is slimmer. It is maybe slimmer than the junior. It's more the size of the ladies in girth, but much longer. And when you compare the nib of this one with the nib of the senior Duofold, look at this. It is a very big difference. But they are really nice pens. I really love how old they look and how old they are. So 1924, which means these are almost 100 years old and still kind of able to write as far as I replace the ink sac. Now, in 1925, there was a kind of a change. Parker was really smart in introducing in a world of black pens, in slim black pens, to introduce a girthy and big, oversized red pen. That it's not a bright red, but it was really different and much brighter than the usual blacks. But there was a brand that made a special move, and we are talking about ebonite. And ebonite was not easy to make in many different colors, so there were these. The black, it was the usual one. The red was an alternative, but it was more brittle. But then, in 1925, actually in 1924, the Schiffer introduced their Jade green to their Schiffer Lifetime flat top, which was a pen that was kind of similar to the Parker in size and design in a way, and they created a jade green plastic, which was a celluloid. So Parker decided to go after that. There was lots of legal issues, and they had to call it in a different name. They called it permanite, and it was advertised as a material that it was non-breakable. So it was introduced in 1925. It was the jade green. The jade green is supposed to be a beautiful color. This one is not. And why? Because this is heavily discolored. And that happened mostly because of the sulfur that was released by the ink sac from the rubber of the ink sac inside, and this is very ugly now. And really nice and green examples are very expensive. This is also a very beautiful pen. This one needs to be cleaned. It is in working condition, but it needs to be cleaned. So this is not a beautiful example of that. They were also released in the senior, in the junior, and this junior is even in a worse state, and then in the ladies size. This one also with the big band, and this one has the little thing that I don't remember the names, the ring on top to put something there, like a ribbon or something. But I have a spare ring that a viewer sent me to put on that pen. I just want to show you the way this Junior Duofold is, the shape. It is in an awful shape. It is completely discolored. Not only the celluloid, but also the clip has tarnished and lost some gold plating, and even the black hard rubber ends are discolored, and they are so used that they no longer have those little grooves like you see here on this one. You see there are some grooves there. You don't have any grooves on the green one. Even on the top you still have some, but not very visible. So this pen is in a lousy condition. Even the cap lip is cracked in several spots. There is a big crack here, as you can see. So this pen is not in really good condition, and because it's not in good condition, I decided to I decided for myself, I don't care about it. Even the nib has a crack running from the breather hole. So this, I decided to say I don't care about this one, so I will just ink it, and I think this one still is in working condition. Yes, the sec still works, and I decided to put some crayon, some green crayon there, just to highlight the engraving. So I'm not worried. Some people may say, but you shouldn't have done that. Okay, I don't really care, because this is not a collector's pen. It is a user's pen, and it is quite nice to use. Even the nib is not properly aligned, but I really don't care. It writes well, it is a very interesting pen, and I like it the way it is. This one needs to be posted to write with, because it's quite short. The other one doesn't. So this is the ladies, also with a section that I think that doesn't match, because it doesn't have that step there. And it is also a Parker pen, a Parker nib. And in 1927, Parker decided to introduce in their lineup the lapis blue and the Mandarin yellow colors. I don't have any lapis blue, which have the same kind of problem as these, so it should be better than these, the green, and what I have here is this. So you can see the big difference between two. The lapis blue was even more prone to crack, to this color, so it would be a mess, but I don't have one. The good ones are very expensive, but I have a yellow, but it's not a complete yellow, it's just parts like this. So the material for this yellow was quite brittle, mostly on the cap lip where the material is thinner, so you will find many more pens like these than caps for them. So many of those pens were just used as converted in desk pen sets. So they would have the rest for the nib, and they would put, instead of these, a long tapered thing to make it a desk pen. So this is an interesting one. It has the engraving, which is quite visible because of the dirt, which is nice, and the nib. So the pen is in good condition, but it's missing the parts. When I bought it, I didn't know it would be rare to find the caps or not, but it was quite inexpensive, so I could buy it, but I think I will sell it someday, because there's no use for having it. And when you look at this pen, you look at something different. And let me bring here another Junior. If you look at this, when the yellow pen was released, it had like this. All the barrel went into there, and it had the threads in yellow. But because this got dirty with ink, and despite Parker said you could clean it with toothpaste, people complained about ink remaining on the threads. In the yellow it's very visible, so Parker decided to extend or to make the threads in black instead of yellow, just to avoid that staining. Before moving to the next one, I just want to say something to you so you can be aware of that. If you are buying Parker pens of this era, you have 3 Parker Duofolds, Junior Duofolds here, and you maybe see that, not sure if you can really see it, but I can. The black one is the longest, this one is a little bit shorter, and this is a little bit shorter even. And why is that? Just because things were not controlled by computers, so there were some variances in the manufacture. Now, again, let me just also tell you something about this. These yellow pens are quite desirable today, and I like to collect yellow pens because I really enjoy yellow in pens. But there is something interesting, that there was a survey in 1927, and it was a survey not of preference, but preferences of pens that were really bought. The most popular color was the green with 34%, then it was the red, then it was the blue, then was the black, and then it was the yellow just with 13%. So the yellow was not a very successful pen. I think nowadays it would be the opposite, but it was not a very successful color. So, next step was in let me check my dates here, my notes. In 1929, Schiffer forced Parker to change again. They forced them because they introduced the green pen, and Parker had to fight back, replacing the hard rubber for plastic, even in all the other colors. But you may still find hard rubber pens made after the release of the green one in 1925, because they still had some stock to use up, so the stock had to be sold. But they changed for plastics. So now Schiffer moved the pens to plastic, and then they also made something else, which was the creation of the Schiffer balance. And Schiffer balance, Schiffer line, the balance line, is a design of a pen that is kind of a bullet shape, a cigar shape, but with pointy ends. So it had a different shape from this, not a flat top anymore. It was a newer kind of design, and people were very attracted to that. And Parker decided they should create a pen like this. This was a Streamline. This is also a lady version. It has some discoloration here on the barrel, but the cap is not that bad. Let me show you the difference. Let's forget about the bands, because the bands are just a detail. You can see that the end of the pen, this is kind of a very flat top that ends the cylindrical cap. In this case, you don't have that flat thing. The cap tapers down towards the end, and the barrel does the same thing towards the end. Then the end is flat, but it's very different from this one. Not very, but a lot different. And even the barrel gets slimmer when getting to the end. There are some examples, because people saw that Parker would accept the pens back in their factory. They would take some material off the regular barrels and then would fit the end parts to have it look different. This one has the correct shape of section, which I don't find on the other ladies that I showed you, like this. you can see that this nib, this section is the same as the Streamline. So this model was called the Streamlined, and this one has a nib that is not a Parker nib, so this one is a wrong one. And here it is. So they changed this flat top to the Streamlined in 1929, and this was a change. I only have this one. I have parts for other two, but it's only parts, the cap and barrel, so I don't really love this model. I prefer this design much more, and if I had to choose this again, maybe I would not buy any of the junior sizes. I would just keep the senior or the oversized sizes because they are much more interesting to me. Okay, the next step on the Parker evolution was the introduction of the Vacuumatic or the vacuum filler. And so the Vacuumatic pen was the flagship pen after this. And when they created that pen, they decided that this pen would go out of the market. Of course, it couldn't be a sudden change because there were still people interested in these pens, and mostly there was lots of stock on the still with the retailers to be sold, and Parker didn't want to buy the pens back from the retailers, and they wanted to have the pens to be sold, so they could not really take these out of the market. And there was also another thing. It was the Big Depression in the 30s, and so the sales of pens were not that high, and it was difficult to sell the old stock. But Parker decided to discontinue this kind of version. They didn't produce it anymore, although they still had lots of stock to sell, and they had old parts that they could assemble to sell. So this kind of model was discontinued by 1932, and it was sold until 1940s, so quite a long time. So they decided to create in 1939, they decided to keep the Duofold line, but with a very different pen. It was with a different price. The Vacuumatic was the main line, and they created a new pen with a different design, which was called the Geometric Duofold, of which I don't have any example. And it only lasted for 1 year and not 2 years. And in 1940, they released the striped Duofold, and this line was on the market until 1948. And this line was interesting because they had these lines, and these lines were really, I think these pens are really interesting. You have the Parker nib, a newer feed, not the old one, and you have this material, this celluloid, which is very beautiful, and it's marked Parker Duofold, as you may see, and it is very, very nice. So this color, this model with this size is called Parker Lady Striped Duofold in rose, silver and black. That's the name of this color scheme. And still a button filler. This one has no, the filler is working, but it has no sack inside because this is something that I want to sell, and so I will only replace the sack by the time I have someone interested. And then there was also this version, and when you look at both, they have some differences. The clip is slightly different. One big change is that the clip is no longer this ballpoint clip. is a clip more similar with the clips that you find on some Parker challengers. The band is a little different, but that's not the biggest difference. It's on this blind cap. This one has a black blind cap and this one doesn't. It has the same material and it is longer. And why is that? Because this pen that was released, this was from this one was released later, sorry, and let me open this. This one is a vacuumatic pen. So this Duofold was kind of a transition. It is a new kind of model that has nothing to do with the older one. It has the same name, but the color scheme is very different, and the shape, the design overall. And this one, also with the same kind of feed, the same kind of nib, same everything. It has this material that you can see, it is transparent. I think you can see the transparency of it. And so there are stripes of one material and stripes of other material. This was called blue, silver and black, which is also a very beautiful color scheme, and it is a vacuumatic pen. So it was interesting that they really started to discontinue the button filler system, and these older pens are already the vacuumatic system, although they are called Parker Duofold. So it is interesting. This is the Parker Stripe Duofold, and this was the end of the American Parker Duofold line. Later there was, because Parker was made in different places, later there was the release of a different model of Parker in the United Kingdom, which is a different model, and it will be for another video. So it was interesting. This was really, in my opinion, the pen that changed everything. It changed the world of pens. If it was not this one other pen someday would come. But they were inventive enough to create this one. They made a very successful pen, and it lasted for a long time, and it sold over 10 million copies. 10 million pens were sold, which is an amazing amount. It is the population of Portugal nowadays. So it is interesting, nice pens, one of my favorite models ever. I hope you found this interesting. It is kind of confusing because there's lots of history and I'm not completely sure of everything, but I try to do my best. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep coming back for more videos. So, see you next time. Bye.